I'm Austin.
Hi, I'm Josh.
I'm Damon.
And we're Teens Talk Hockey.
Fans watching it right now. Quick whisper. Look at the effort of not just getting right in feet of on the arm. Goes. Ovechkin trying to drag it through.
Hello, Teens Talk Hockey fans. Welcome to the show today. Today we're going to be doing the big prediction video.
Oh!
It's going to be an excellent episode today. We're going to stray away from the regular season recap.
Yeah,
Best
who will win the
players,
cups,
questions,
who will
and
win the
predictions.
trophies, and
Yeah.
who would win the series. and all that.
It's going to be in 3 parts. Well, not 3 parts, but it's going to be 3 sections in one video. It's going to be our conference standings 1 through 15 for both conferences, our President's Trophy winners. Well, I guess all the same thing. Then we're going to have our playoff trees with each series. I guess we're going to with our imaginary playoffs. We each have our own imaginary playoff tree. Plus at the end, we're going to do our awards like who won the Conn Smythe, Hart Trophy, all that jazz.
And Stanley Cup and President's Trophy.
That goes with the playoff series.
Yeah.
So anyway, with that, let's begin this brilliant season.
Predictions are coming to you.
Yay!
Predictions.
Yeah.
We're going to have a fantastic NHL season this year. We have a lot of exciting teams in the New York Rangers, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Boston Bruins in the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, we have the Vancouver Canucks, Chicago Blackhawks, and LA Kings, as well as the St. Louis Blues. So we have 7 great teams to watch, as well as some other ones in, like San Jose, Detroit, Buffalo, Philadelphia too, and Washington Capitals, some more exciting teams to watch. Actually, I think Philadelphia would be better than St. Louis. Anyway, moving on. In the Eastern Conference, here's what I have for my standings. Number 1. We have the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're a great team. They have a lot of star power in Crosby and Malkin. Number 2, we have the Boston Bruins. They have a ton of depth, maybe the most depth in the NHL, and they also got Char anchoring that defense. Number 3, we have the Washington Capitals. They got Ovi. Ovechkin, he makes that team. Number 4, we have the New York Rangers. They added Rick Nash this offseason, as well as they have Marian Gaborik, Brad Richards at forward, and on defense, they have Mark Stahl and Dan Girardi, and as well as the King Henrik and net. Very, very good team. Number 5, we have the Philadelphia Flyers. They have the humongous good Ilya Brizgalov, and they have Claude Giroux, slick hands, and they got Danny Briere over there too. Number 6, the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo is kind of an iffy team. They have some good players, but not so great depth-wise. They got Miller time in net, as well as Pominville and Vanek on their wing. As well, I guess they got and they got Cody Hodgson up and coming there too. Number 7, the Carolina Hurricanes. This team is just entering the playoffs like Buffalo is, because they didn't make it last year. Carolina made some huge additions this offseason, adding Jordan Staal and Alex Semin. They also have Cam Borden, and they have Jordan Stahl's brother Eric Stahl at center. Very, very good team. Yeah, they have some good star players. Number 8, the New Jersey Devils is barely squeaking into the playoffs. New Jersey, you can't deny Brodeur. They got Kovalchuk. Kovalchuk's got that fantastic wrist shot, very, very powerful, and they have a lot. New Jersey has tremendous depth. They can get scoring from all their lines. Very good team. Number 9, just missing the playoffs, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, Tampa's got some great players in Steven Stamkos, Martin St. Louis, and Vincent Lecavalier, as well as on the back end they have Sami Salo, Matthew Carl, and Victor Hedman. So they have some good star power. However, they're lacking on the depth end of things. So yeah. Number 10, the Florida Panthers. Now, Florida, I don't know if I should have them this high. Florida, on paper, they're not a very good team, but they did make the playoffs this last year, but I don't have them in the playoffs this year. Because, let's face it, they have no stars. Basically, probably their best player is Chris Verstegen. He's about a 60-point player. So, yeah. I guess Brian Campbell is a 50-point defenseman, but he's not a superstar. He's a star player, but not a superstar. Anyway, moving on. Number 11, I have the Ottawa Senators. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from the Ottawa Senators fans for saying this, but sorry, your team's just not that good. You guys kind of fluked your way into the playoffs. You do have a superstar in Jason Spezza and Erik Karlsson, as well as the ever-incumbent Daniel Alfredsson. However, I don't see him in the playoffs. I just question Craig Anderson's consistency too. Sorry, Senators fans, but you do have McHollick. He's another 30-goal scorer, so maybe playoffs for you, but I don't see it right now. So number 11. Number 12, we have the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the Winnipeg Jets are kind of like the Ottawa Senators. Sorry. They're more like the Florida Panthers. They don't really have any star players. But they do have some alright depth or whatever. They do have Dustin Buffalo on the back end and Zach Bogosian. So those are two franchise defensemen. However, their forward depth is lacking. I mean, they have Evander Kane who's going to be a 40-goal scorer pretty soon, but not right now. He's not a superstar for now. Moving on. Number 13, sorry Leafs fans. Toronto's not doing that well. Sorry. Your forward group just gets a facepalm for me. Defense is way overpaid, and your goaltending's just iffy. I love James Reimer, but he's just too much of a question mark right now. Moving on, number 14, the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the Montreal Canadiens, they're actually not that bad a defensive team. They're actually a pretty solid team on the defensive end of things, with Josh Georges, Andrei Markov, and PK Subban back there. However, on forwards, they only have just pretty much Thomas Plekanec and Max Pacioretty up there. I guess David Desharnais did. I think got 60 points this season. As well, number 15, the New York Islanders. Sorry, John Tavares, you're stranded. It's going to be a long career for you. A long, sad career in Long Island. Sorry, John Tavares. JT, it's just not going to happen for a couple of years. However, you do have Griffin Reinhart coming up there, as well as what's his name? Nino Niederreiter. He's another excellent prospect. So in the Eastern Conference, from my 1 through 15, I'll quickly run it through one more time. Number 1, Pittsburgh. Number 2, Boston. Number 3, Washington. Number 4, New York. Number 5, Philadelphia. Number 6, Buffalo. Number 7, Carolina. Number 8, New Jersey. Number 9, Tampa Bay. Number 11, Florida. Number 10, Florida. Number 11, Ottawa. Number 12, Winnipeg. Number 13, Toronto. Number 14, Montreal. Number 15, New York. And Pittsburgh Penguins winning the President's Trophy. Now on to the Western Conference. Now in the Western Conference, there's a lot of good teams, like I've already stated. Number 1 in the West, we have the Vancouver Canucks. This team is a force on the ice. They have so much depth, so much talent on the defensive end of things. It's absurd, and they also have their good problem in the goaltending with Luongo and Schneider. This team is a force. They might win the cup. Number 2, we have the Los Angeles Kings, the defending Stanley Cup champions. I think they really underachieved in the regular season this year, but they made up for it in the playoffs. The playoffs really showed how good this team was. They have a lot of excellent players in Dustin Brown, Andrzej Kopitar, and what's his name? Drew Doughty. And Jonathan Quick, too. He might have the league's best goalie. Number 3, the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks might have the most star power of any team in the league, with Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, Marian Hossa, Duncan Keith, not Corey Crawford, Patrick Sharp. They have a ton of, and Brent Seabrook, a ton of star power. However, not great depth-wise. Moving on. Number 4, St. Louis. Now, St. Louis, sorry, hey, you can see my binder. St. Louis has a ton of depth. So much so that they get scoring from all their lines. However, the only real superstar that St. Louis has is Alex Pietrangelo. And Alex Pietrangelo is a fantastic defense, and he's going to anchor that defense for a long time. Moving on, number 5, the Minnesota Wild. Yeah, Minnesota gets a nod from me. I know I said in my Minnesota prediction I had about 7th or 8th, but now that I go back on and rethinking, I think they're going to be 5th. Minnesota's a great team. They have a lot of star power as well, with like Miku Koivu, Nicholas Backstrom, Danny Heatley, Ryan Suter, Zach Parise, and who's that? What's that guy's name? I can't remember. Anyway, moving on. San Jose to number 6. San Jose is kind of an aging team. They're still good though. They still have Thornton and Marlowe up at front there, and then they got Boyle and Burns on the back end, as well as they got a good young talent, Logan Couture, and they got Joe Pavelski there too. Moving on. Number 7, the Detroit Red Wings. Now, Detroit's not another aging team. They took a huge hit this offseason, losing Nicholas Lidstrom to retirement. However, they still have a good core with Henrik Zetterberg, Pavel Datsyuk, Johan Franzen, and Valtteri Filppula, as well as Jimmy Howard. Next team is number 8, the Nashville Predators. Now, Nashville took a huge hit this offseason, losing Ryan Suter and Andrei Kositsyn and Alexander Radulov. Yeah, three college for this team. They lost all 3 of them. That's why I have them dropping down to the 8th seed. They do have some great players in Shea Weber and Pecorino. Next up is the Dallas Stars, coming in at number 9. The Dallas Stars, well, they added some good players. Oh, sorry. They added some great players this offseason with Ray Whitney, Jaromir Jagr, and Derek Roy. To add to their already good forward core of Lou Erickson, Brendan Morrow, and I forget the other guy. Next team, number 10, the Phoenix Coyotes. Now, the Phoenix Coyotes, On paper, they're not very good. It seems like they're in the playoffs every year, but I think this is the year that the paper actually shows up. They do have a great goalie in Mike Smith and a great forward in Shane Doan, as well as Radim Verbata, and they have an excellent star defenseman, Keith Yandel, on the back end. Number 11, the Colorado Avalanche. Now, Colorado does have some good players in Paul Stastny and Matt Duchene. However, I don't see them in the playoffs. They're just too young a team. They're too inexperienced. They do have Gabriel Landeskog. He's an up-and-coming player. Gabriel Landeskog's going to be a force in this league. Probably going to get Landeskog pounds out. He's probably like a 35, 80-point guy who plays defense. Landeskog's going to be awesome for this team in a couple years. Number 12, the Anaheim Ducks. Now, Anaheim is one of those teams that has a ton of star power as well. Anaheim has Corey Perry, Bobby Ryan, Timo Solani, Ryan Getzlaf. I mean, they have a ton of star power, as well as Jonas Hiller. And Jonas Hiller might be the most skilled goalie in the league, but he's really consistent. Moving on, number 13, the Edmonton Oilers. Now, Edmonton, they're really young. They have a lot of great young talent on the team. However, I think they're just too inexperienced. That's the thing. Because they have Hall, Eberle, Hopkins, and I guess they got Schultz too. They have some great young talent. However, they're just not that. They're just too young. They don't have enough depth. Moving on, number 14, the Calgary Flames. Sorry, Calgary fans. Your team's just. This is the year where you break off from your ninth place, where you finish the past 3 years in a row. Sorry, Jerome McGinley needs to be traded. You need to start the rebuild. It needs to happen. And sorry, number 15, Columbus Blue Jackets, Jack Johnson, James Wisniewski, you're stranded. You made a stupid deal this year dealing Rick Nash for basically some second-line players. Bad trade, and now we're going to move on to Josh Brownell's predictions.
This year looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting year. There's lots of good teams and a couple of mediocre teams and only a few bad teams. But there's definitely going to be some teams that clearly excel in the league. Those teams are probably going to be the New York Rangers, Boston Bruins, Washington Capitals, and the Pittsburgh Penguins in the East, and the Vancouver Canucks, Chicago Blackhawks, and the Los Angeles Kings in the West. Now, actually, right now, I think the Eastern Conference is slightly stronger than the Western Conference because they have more superstar teams over in the Eastern Conference and lots of stronger teams there, too. Now, in the Eastern Conference, I had New York ranked first, and I think they're going to do slightly better than Pittsburgh just so they can clinch their division getting first spot. Then I see the Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals coming in second and third. Now, these teams are both pretty good teams. Now, the Boston Bruins, Tim Thomas is taking the year off, but I'm not sure if he's still going to with the lockout that's happening. So he might actually say the lockout's his year off. So he might play, but he probably won't. Now, Washington Capitals, they have Alexander Ovechkin, and he's pretty much what carries this team so far. Like, they would probably be a 6th or 7th seed team without Ovi, but Ovi's what keeps them so high in the playoffs. And then you got yourself Pittsburgh Penguins 4th. Now, I think if it weren't for the divisions, they'd probably New York, Pittsburgh, but because the top 3 teams in each division have to be up in the top 3, that's why Pittsburgh is down in the 4th. Now, Pittsburgh is a very good team. Tons of star power depth as well. They have Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. Now, both of those guys are first-line centermen, but because there's 2 of them, Evgeny's centering the second line, which gives them a lot of clear depth on their center. Then I have the Philadelphia Flyers, which I don't know why I put them 5th, because that's going to create yet another very interesting playoffs. So, Philly, they got Brzgalov, which isn't even that great. I don't know why I mentioned him. But then there's New Jersey in 6th, which they have lost a couple of players. They lost Zach Parise. And I think Brodeur is also what keeps this team so well, because I think they'd be out of the playoffs if it weren't for Brodeur. And then I have the Buffalo Sabres, number 7 seed. This team has greatly improved since last year, and I think they're going to do much better this year. Actually, a lot better. And then I have the Carolina Hurricanes. They got Semin and Stahl. And so I think that's what's keeping them just squeaking in the playoffs. Then, outside of the playoffs, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, they have actually a lot of good players. LeCavier, I butchered his name right there. And a lot of other guys. They're a really good team, but I just don't know why they're not making the playoffs. They just aren't performing well. And then there's the Ottawa Senators. Sorry, Senators fans, I'm going to have to agree with Austin. They're out of the playoffs. They, I think, squeaked by getting 8th seed last year, and I don't even know how they made it. And then I have the Florida Panthers. I know it's a big change to go from 3rd seed to 11th seed, but I think Florida, they just got lucky with the bad year for Washington, which made them up there in third seed for just clinching the division. And then I have the Winnipeg Jets. Now, these guys are a new team. They just settled down in Winnipeg, and they're doing okay, but they don't got too much star power. They don't got too much depth, and that's why I see them only ranking 12. Toronto Maple Leafs fans, I'm one of you, but I'm sorry. They're not going to make the playoffs. I see them 13th seed. Reimer's a pretty good goalie, but he's not enough to carry the team. Then the Montreal Canadiens I have ranking 14th, and the New York Islanders ranking 15th. Now, these teams actually, they're not that bad. It's just there's so many other teams above them that are better than them that they just can't make the playoffs. Now, New York Islanders, you got some stars. You got Tavares, really. He's your leader pretty much, and he's stuck. He's probably going to have a pretty sad career with no real playoff run. And that's pretty much what I see in the Eastern Conference. Except with Florida, there is a trade that may happen with Florida and Vancouver. Luongo may be going to Florida. And if Luongo goes to Florida, I think Florida will jump to 6th or 7th seed. Because with Luongo in net, that will really strengthen their team. There will be a lot less goals scored on them. Now in the Western Conference standings, I have something like, it blows my mind how good Vancouver is. I think they're going to win the President's Trophy and clinch first seed. And then there's going to be the Chicago Blackhawks and Los Angeles Kings. Like, all three of these teams are really, really good. Vancouver Canucks, they have a goalie problem. They can't decide who's starting because they're both so good, which isn't really that bad. Then there's the Chicago Blackhawks. They have tons of star power, but not too much depth. They have Sharp, Kane, a lot of good guys, but not too much depth. Then there's Los Angeles Kings. Now, they didn't do too good last year, but this year I think they'll improve greatly. With the hot Jonathan Quick, if he plays like he did in the playoffs this year, they will definitely do very well. Now I have the St. Louis Blues going 4th seed, and the Minnesota Wild going 5th seed. Now St. Louis, they are doing really good lately. They've only made They've only made the playoffs 3 times in their entire franchise, and this decade, I think, is going to be their decade. They're probably going to do pretty good, and I think they could probably win a cup sometime soon. Now, the Minnesota Wild, they're jumping from the bottom up to 5th seed, and this is only because Suter and Parise both went to their team. Now, Chuck Fletcher, you are like the best GM ever. I don't know how you got both those players on your team, but, well, you did. And so your team is really greatly improved, and your team's success is going to be because of Chuck Fletcher. Now the Phoenix Coyotes are 6th seed, and the San Jose Sharks are 7th seed. And then there's the Detroit Red Wings on 8th seed. Now these 3 teams, well, the Phoenix Coyotes, they've been doing pretty good, but I don't think they're going to do too great. Shane Doan, you're an awesome player, and so is Smith, and so is Ray Whitney. These guys are all big stars on their team, and I think they carry their team pretty well. There's not too much depth on their team, but they're still a really good team. The San Jose Sharks, I don't really even know that many players on their team, but they got some okay depth. But it's I don't know really. Then there's the Detroit Red Wings. They are doing okay. Not that great. I don't even know how they're making the playoffs. Now there's the Nashville Predators, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Dallas Stars all out in the playoffs, but pretty darn close. Nashville, they were doing 4th or 5th seed, I believe, last year, but they lost to the Detroit Red Wings going out in the first round. Now, Nashville, they're not doing that great now. They lost a couple of players, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Now there's the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. Now Colorado doesn't have too much star power or depth, and neither does Dallas. Dallas, they have some good players. Louis Eriksson, he's pretty nice. And then there's a couple of other guys, but not too much star power. Now my favorite team, Edmonton Oilers, I see them ranking 12th. Now they got a lot of young depth, but I think their players need to learn who they have chemistry with and who they don't. And once they find out their good lines, I think they'll be a great team. Now, over the past 3 years, the Edmonton Oilers have had the top pick every single year. Now, that's crazy. And throughout that, they've got tons of great players. Yali Yakupov, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Taylor Hall, Jordan Eberle, all through the past 4 or 5 years, they've got tons of great players, and I think these guys will definitely lead their team to a cup soon. Not this year, not next year, but probably within the next 3 to 5 years. Now there's the Anaheim Ducks and the Calgary Flames in 13th and 14th. Now, Calgary in 14th, they really do not got anything other than Jerome McGinley and Mika Kiprusoff. They are the only 2 players that keep their team alive at all from being 15th. The Anaheim Ducks, they have some pretty good players, but they don't got enough to make it to the playoffs. Now, 15th seed in Western Conference, I see Columbus Blue Jackets again. They made a horrible trade rating, Nash. I don't know what they were thinking. They just lost it all right there. Any hope of making the playoffs ever really again within the next 5 years is gone now. And that's what I see for both conferences this year.
To start off, I'm going to give you my division winners from the East and West. For the East, I have New York Rangers they're winning their division. They have added Rick Nash, which brings in high depth. I also have Boston Bruins and Washington Capitals winning their division. Now, obviously, Vancouver is going to win their division for the West. They're a high team. I don't know how they do that, but they're just a good team. Now, Chicago Blackhawks also wins their division, and so does the LA Kings. Now, for the Eastern Conference, number 1, New York Rangers, a high team as always. Boston Bruins will be in second. Third, Washington Capitals, that may be a little bit high, but they have a lot of star power with Ovechkin. Now, I don't see Pittsburgh winning the division, but I have them at 4th. They have a lot of star power with Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, and Fleury. Fleury wasn't a good goaltender last year, but he's still very good. Now, behind him, in 5th, is Philadelphia Flyers. They are also a good team, as you see. I don't get how they are, but they just do it. Now, this may be a bit high, but for 6, New Jersey Devils. They have Brodeur carrying their team, but I still see them in the playoffs. I have a lot of faith for that team. 7th, I disagree with Josh and Austin, but I have Ottawa Senators at 7th. I think they can pull off one more year for the playoffs because they have good goaltender and yeah. But 8th, you're going to be surprised. The Buffalo Sabres. They were so close to making the playoffs last year, but I think they're going to make at least 8th for next year and possibly get to at least the first round. 9th, I have Tampa Bay Lightning. Now they got LeCavier, St. Louis, and not Dwayne Rolson. Now for 10th, Carolina Hurricanes. Adding Jordan Stahl with Eric Stahl, they're both centermen, and they'll be playing on separate lines to give them 2 solid lines, which brings up their depth. So I don't see them in the playoffs, but they will make significant improvement, I believe. Now for 11th, I see the Winnipeg Jets. They still need to grow as a team in order to make the playoffs, but I don't see them in the playoffs for next year. 12th, Florida Panthers. They may got lucky winning their division and went up to 3rd, which looks a bit high, but this team ain't really very good, so I see them at 12th. Following them at 13th is the Montreal Canadiens. I'm surprised they went last, but they still need to make improvements. I'm sorry. Now the New York Islanders. This is basically the same situation as Rick Nash. Tavares is the only star player for their team, and he has to carry them every step of the way. So I'm sorry, but I think you need a trade in order to get somewhere. Now 15th, sorry Maple Leafs fans, but Toronto I have to put at 15th. They still need to figure out how they're going to grow as a team, because they need to get something to at least move up to 12th. Now, as for that, I'm starting at the West now. Number 1, Vancouver Canucks. They're just an insane team. They came close in 2011 winning Stanley Cup. They went a bit low last year against LA, losing in 5 games. But I predict them at the President's Trophy winner. Even though that's not going to be easy against the Rangers, but I guess that's how it is. Chicago Blackhawks. They have Taves and Kane, and they got a lot of star power. I still see them winning their division, and even though they're not going to possibly do well in playoffs, I still see them doing well. Now, following them is the LA Kings. Now, the LA Kings got pretty lucky winning that cup, but Jonathan Quick on their team with Kopitar and Brown, they're going to play very good. Now, I do see the St. Louis Blues at 4th. I don't know why, but they're just good. Now, at 5th, Phoenix. Shane Doan is on their team. They got a lot of star power, I think. I don't know how they make the playoffs, but they're just a good, strong team. 6th, Nashville Predators. They may have lost a few players, but I still see them in the playoffs for one more year at least. Now, 7th, the Detroit Red Wings. Losing Lindstrom is going to be very tough, but also that the team's aging. They get, each and every year, they're older and older, but I see them getting lower and lower. Possibly next year I don't see them at the playoffs, so I'm saying they're at 7th. 8th, the San Jose Sharks. I don't see much hope for them in the playoffs, but I see that they're going to do well enough to at least make it. Following them at 9th will be Minnesota. I think it'll improve just a little, but you're not going to make the playoffs. 10th, the Dallas Stars. I don't see much hope for you at all. I think you're going to just flop. Now 11th. No matter how much I want to be biased and put Edmonton at 1st, I just can't. I give him a fair prediction and putting him at 11th. They may have Schultz and Yakupov to join their team, but they still need to build up their chemistry and build up their depth in order to make the playoffs. Possibly next year they might have a chance to fight for a playoff spot, but in a few years I really think they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to have a very good team because they already do. From what I've seen in the Barons with Hall, Eberle, and Schultz, I bet they're going to make the playoffs in the AHL. But when it comes to Edmonton, they're really going to put a good impact for Edmonton. Now 12th. I don't see, as Josh and Austin, putting them at 14th. I don't see Calgary that low, but I see lower than 9th. Because Jerome McGinley and Kiprusoff are the only good players on that team. They may seem like they have high depth with Glenn Cross and all of them, but I don't see them anywhere. It's time to rebuild. And Jerome McGinley, I really want him to be traded. He's a very loyal player for playing on that team for his whole career, but I think it's time for you to fight for that cup until you retire. I really think it's time for you to trade. The same as Kiprusoff. Now the Anaheim Ducks, they have a lot of star power, but I don't think it's going to be good enough for next year. Possibly I see hope for them next year, like the year after, but I still think they're going to be at least 13th. Colorado Avalanche, you need to rebuild as well, so I don't see much hope for you at all. So that's 14th. Now 15th, also Columbus Blue Jackets. Very bad, very poor trade to get rid of Rick Nash, but Rick Nash himself also wanted to trade, and you can't. There's nothing you can do. He's very loyal for playing for 7 years and only going to the first round once, but I don't think it's time for a change really, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sorry, Columbus, but you need to figure something out to make your team better. But anyways, that's my prediction for the conference, for the standings.
Yes, my Teens Talk Hockey brethren, we have just made our conference predictions.
Yes. But do you really see Minnesota not making the playoffs?
Yeah, I do.
Really? Because they got Parise and Suter.
I don't think that's going to be well enough to make the playoffs. Possibly about next
Both
year.
have played in the playoffs, though. They're proven.
Yeah, but maybe next year. But I see them at least 9th or something.
Okay. You stay with your prediction.
But I do agree about my prediction with Edmonton at least.
Edmonton.
Yeah, I think I have 13th or something.
Yeah,
I put them at 10th though.
They're
Do you
going to
think
be
that'd
better.
Good enough?
They're going to be better than 14th, definitely.
Oh yeah. Adding Yakupov, which you guys forgot to mention, and Schultz. They're going to have a good.
Yakupov and Schultz. Yakupov adds yet another great forward player, and Schultz is starting to help fix their defensive problem.
But did you see Schultz in the AHL for the Barons?
Well, they're doing awesome.
Yeah, they're obviously going to make the playoffs, right?
And none of the Oilers players going to get really rusty at all because they've been playing in the AHL. Because most of their players are actually in the AHL because they're so young still.
I don't know. They do have some solid talent back there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I see them at least 10th, and they're going to work their way up.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Progressively improve. Progressively.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, because their rebuild's pretty close to being completed due to their draft picks.
Well, just gotta mature.
Yeah. Well, some of them already are in the 20s.
Kind of mature like me.
Taylor Hall's already 20s.
Anyway.
So.
Who else we got here? What's another interesting pick? You had Carolina out. You did.
Yeah, why isn't Carolina in?
Well, because they have a couple good players, but I don't say that's going to be good enough for them to make the playoffs, though. I know they just they need to build up their team chemistry before they can get to the playoffs.
I guess so. Kind of.
But Jordan Stahl and Eric Stahl played as each other's kids. You know.
They're brothers.
I know, but they still need to. It's been years, right?
I guess so.
So they just still need to adjust, make small adjustments.
What's Semin though?
He still needs to bump up the chemistry, right? He just needs to get to know his team.
I guess so.
Anyways,
where do you guys see the playoffs at?
Actually, let's get on with the playoffs right now. I will start in just a second. Bingo, bingo, bingo.
Bingo, bango, bango.
Bingo, bingo, bow. Are you still filming?
Yeah, let's just go. Come on. Playoff predictions now. First round. Starting now. Now for my playoff predictions. In round 1 in the Eastern Conference, I have the number 1 seeded Pittsburgh Penguins versus the number 8 seeded New Jersey Devils. In this series, I see Pittsburgh taking the series 4-2. I think Pittsburgh is just too strong a team, and they dominated New Jersey in the regular season matchup. I think it was like 4-2 or so. I think it might have been 3-3, but never mind that. But I think Pittsburgh's a much better team. They take that series in 6 games. Number 2, Boston Bruins versus the number 7 seeded Carolina Hurricanes. Now, this is kind of interesting. I know I'm going to upset a lot of Bruins fans in this one, but I'm going to take Carolina in 6 games, winning 4-2. Because Carolina won all 4 games this regular season. I mean, all 4. They swept the Bruins. The Bruins! They match up really well against them. Plus, they added Jordan Stahl and Alex Semin. They'll blow Boston apart. If not 5 games. But I'm going to say 4-2. Just because Boston's that good a team. Now we have the number 3 Washington Capitals versus the number 6 Buffalo Sabres. Now, Buffalo actually dominated Washington Capitals in the regular season matchup. And I think Buffalo matches up very well because Buffalo's a defensive-minded team. Washington's an offensive-minded team, and often defensive-minded teams beat the offensive-minded teams. Remember, offense wins games, but defense wins championships. And that's kind of the thing, of the rule of thumb in the playoffs. So, I'm going to take Buffalo in 5 games. 4-1. Number 4, New York Rangers versus the number 5 Philadelphia Flyers. Kind of a rivalry series. However, New York Rangers match up really well against Philadelphia. New York Rangers, I think, won 5-6 in the regular season. So I'm going to put the New York Rangers winning the series 4-1. New York Rangers are just too good. They got Richards, Gaborik, and Nash, and I guess Lundqvist and net. Philly does have Claude Giroux and Danny Briere and Scott Hartnell, but still, Rangers take the cake here. And now, moving on to the Western Conference round 1. We have the number 1 seeded Vancouver Canucks versus the number 8 seeded Nashville Predators. Now, Nashville is a decent team. It does have some good players in Shea Weber and Rene. But losing Radulov, Kostitsyn, and Suter is just too much for the team to take. Vancouver Canucks are just too good. Vancouver in 5 games, 4-1. Now we have the number 2 Los Angeles Kings versus the number 7 Detroit Red Wings. Detroit's aging; they're on the downswing. However, Detroit won 3 out of 4 against Los Angeles Kings in the regular season, which shows how well the teams match up against each other. And I think Jimmy Howard's a great goalie, and Los Angeles is also a fantastic playoff team, as evidenced by their cup win last year. However, this is my really ballsy pick. Detroit wins it in Game 7, 4-3. Ho, ho, ho. And I'm going to have Johan Franzen scoring in overtime, winning Game 7, 5-4. Yes, they get 5 by quick. I'm going to get a lot of hate for that one. Number 3, Chicago versus number 6, San Jose. Now, these teams tied the regular season 2-2. However, Chicago is a bit of a better team because San Jose in the downswing with the aging. Chicago's really young. Chicago in 7 games. Now, number 4, St. Louis versus the number 5, Minnesota Wild. Now, the St. Louis Blues have a ton of depth. They have great goaltending, great defense. However, Minnesota's they just have too much star power. That's the main factor here. They added Suter and Parise, and it makes them just a much better team. Minnesota in 6 games, winning 4-2. On to the second round. Now in the second round we have, let me just readjust myself here. I don't want to be cross-legged, but you don't see that. Anyway, now we have the number 1 seeded Pittsburgh Penguins versus the number 7 seeded Carolina Hurricanes. Now Pittsburgh dominated this regular season match. They won like 3 out of the 4 games or something like that. And Pittsburgh is just too good. The team, they met in the playoffs in 2009. Pittsburgh swept them. Evgeny Malkin was a force in that series with his Game 4 hat trick or something. Game 3 hat trick. With that sick backhand goal. Pittsburgh's just too good with Crosby. Carolina Hurricanes do have two of the Stahl brothers and Semin, and Cam Ward, but Pittsburgh's just too good. Pittsburgh in 5 games. Now we have the number 4 New York Rangers versus the number 6 Buffalo Sabres. Now the New York Rangers have a very, 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 very good team with, like I said before, Nash, Richards, Gaborik, Girardi, Stahl, and Lundqvist in net. However, the Buffalo Sabres, they do have Miller time in there, and Pominville and Vanek, and it's always good, all that jazz, as well as Christian Ehrhoff on the point. However, despite, I think Buffalo did win 3 out of 4 of the regular season games, and New York against a great New York team. However, New York adding Nash, and the New York team on paper was just too good. I have taken New York in 6 games. Moving on to the Western Conference second round. We have the Vancouver Canucks versus the number 1 seeded Vancouver Canucks versus the number 7 seeded Detroit Red Wings. Now, Detroit's on the downswing. The Canucks and Red Wings split both their regular season matchups 2-2. They both winning 2 games apiece. However, Detroit's just too much on the downswing, and with the loss of Nicholas Fletcher, I see the Canucks taking the series 4-1. Now, in the other series, we have the number 3 Chicago Blackhawks versus the number 5 Minnesota Wild. I believe they split the season series. However, Chicago's experienced, and they have too much star power. They're one of the few teams able to match Minnesota's star power. I see Chicago winning 4-3. Yes, I do. Now moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals, the playoffs third round. We have the first seeded Pittsburgh Penguins versus the 4th seeded New York Rangers. Now, the Pittsburgh Penguins won 4 to 6 matchups against the New York Rangers this season. However, remember, these teams are way too good. Either team can beat each other. And New York Rangers match up well against the Pittsburgh Penguins because they're a defensive-minded team. I'm going to see this. I'm going balls to the wall. Or that sounded really gay. Just ignore that. It's going to be New York Rangers winning the series in 7 games off of Rick Nash's overtime winner. They're going to win 1-0 in Game 7. Don't take that to the bank. Now, in the Western Conference, we have the first seeded Vancouver Canucks versus the 3rd seeded Chicago Blackhawks. Now, both these teams are big, big rivals. Seem to me in the playoffs almost every year. However, Vancouver Canucks are a little bit of a better team. They have as much star power as Chicago as well. But you know what? I think Vancouver's depth on defense is going to pull out a win in this series. I see Vancouver in 7 games. Now for my Stanley Cup Finals, I have the West's first seed Vancouver Canucks and the East's first seed New York Rangers. It's going to be the Rangers are going to get both the first 2 games on the road against Vancouver. The Rangers are going to get the Canucks are going to respond in Game 3, getting the next one. However, the Rangers are going to close it out with two back-to-back overtime wins to win the Cup. Sorry, Canucks fans. I'm a big Canucks fan, but the Rangers take the cake here in 5 games. That is my playoff tree. I hope you disagree.
I'm going to start with the Eastern Conference in the first round. Now, we got the first seeded New York Rangers versus the 8th seeded Carolina Hurricanes. Now, New York is a very, very good team, and I think they're just going to beat Carolina. They matched up really well against them, and I think New York's going to win 4-1. Now, the Boston Bruins versus the Buffalo Sabres. Now, Buffalo, although they are a lower seed team, they matched up really well against Boston this year. And I think they're going to do really well. And they are fairly close, but I think they're going to win 4-3 in Game 7. Now, the Washington Capitals 3rd seed versus the New Jersey Devils. Now, New Jersey matches up against the Washington Capitals very well. And I think just Brodeur's going to shut down Washington because they're a really offensive-minded team, and Brodeur is just a really good goalie. And I just think he's going to prevent Washington from scoring, and I think New Jersey's going to win in 6 games. Now, the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Philadelphia Flyers. I have no clue why I gave myself this headache, but I matched them up against each other. Now, the Penguins have tons of star power depth, and so do the Philadelphia Flyers. They match up really well against each other. They're the biggest rivals. They're some of the biggest rivals there are in the NHL. The Battle of Pennsylvania. And I think Philly's going to win in 7 games. Now over to the Western Conference, I have the Vancouver Canucks first seed versus the Detroit Red Wings. Anyways, Vancouver is a very strong team. They have tons of depth, lots of star power, and Detroit's just getting pretty old. And so I think Vancouver's going to win 5 or 6 games. Now the Chicago Blackhawks are going to be facing the San Jose Sharks. Now, San Jose actually matched up fairly well against Chicago in this regular season, and I think they're actually going to do better, and I think they're going to win in 7 games. I know, lots of Game 7s. I don't know why. Now, the LA Kings versus the Phoenix Coyotes. I love the Phoenix Coyotes. I'll cheer for them till I die, but I think LA is going to win. I don't know in how many games. I'm a little biased, so I said 7 games, but I think more like 5 or 6 games. But they're definitely not going to sweep them. Now, the St. Louis Blues versus the Minnesota Wild. Now, St. Louis, they have been doing really good lately. This will be their 4th time making the playoffs. And the Minnesota Wild, they have greatly improved with the addition of Suter and Parise. Now, Parise and Suter, I think, are going to lead the Wild over the St. Louis Blues, and I think Minnesota's going to win in 5 games. On to the second round of the playoffs. The New York Rangers are going to be facing against the Buffalo Sabres, 1st seed versus 7th seed. Now, you may get mad at me for saying this, but I think Buffalo's going to win because they just matched up really well in the season, and I think they're really good. They have a good matchup with them, and I think they're going to win in 7 games. Now, the Philadelphia Flyers, 5th seed versus the 6th seed New Jersey Devils. Now, New Jersey and Philly match up very well as well. And I think that New Jersey's going to win 7 games also. It's going to be a really close series just the way I placed everyone in the standings. And I don't know how this happened, but I just ended up with a lot of Game 7s because of just the way people matched up with each other. Now New Jersey's going to win 7 games. Now Vancouver and the San Jose Sharks. Vancouver is outstanding in the San Jose Sharks. Well, they just aren't. Vancouver matches up very well against San Jose. They won, I think, all 4 games against San Jose this season. And I think Vancouver's going to have the only sweep of the playoffs, and they're going to sweep the San Jose Sharks. Now, the LA Kings versus the Minnesota Wild. Now, the Wild, they're pretty good now with the addition of Suter and Parise, but they're still unproven. So Suter and Parise, I think, are some of the only players that have actually made it to the playoffs on that team. And so I think LA is going to win in 6 or 7 games against Minnesota. On to the third round of the playoffs. New Jersey Devils against the Buffalo Sabres. I know you're going to be yelling at me for why is Buffalo going so far, but I think just the way they've matched up, they are a very good team to match up against, and I think New Jersey is going to lose them in 7 games as well. Now, over to the Western Conference, the Vancouver Canucks versus the LA Kings. Now, this happened in the round 1 last year, and well, they won 5 games, but this year I think it's going to be 6 games, maybe 7 games, but I think it's going to be LA's game because I think LA just matches up really well against Vancouver. And, well, Jonathan Quick was able to stop Vancouver over and over again, and if he plays like he did last year in the playoffs, he will most definitely win against Vancouver Canucks. Now, the Stanley Cup Finals, I have the Buffalo Sabres versus the LA Kings. Now, the LA Kings and the Buffalo Sabres only played twice last regular season, so it's very difficult to tell how they match up against each other. However, Buffalo won 1 game in regular time and an overtime win against them as well. So I think Buffalo's going to win, but I'm not entirely sure. Don't bet your money on it, but I think Buffalo's going to win in 7 games against the LA Kings. Now, if you listen to what I've just said, I just said that Buffalo wins every single round in 7 games. Now, it sounds crazy. Buffalo's not even that great of a team, but it's just the way they matched up with their opponents, and I think they're going to do really well.
Now, I'm going to say a fair prediction. I'm not going to say a Buffalo going to win each round in 7 games, but now I'm going to start for the Eastern Conference. Now, 1 versus 8 is the New York Rangers and Buffalo Sabres. Sorry, Josh, but I see, obviously, the Rangers in 5 games. Now, for Boston Bruins, the Ottawa Senators, I see Boston in 6 games, just because, Ottawa's good enough to make the playoffs, but they're not going to go far, I think. They didn't last year, so too bad. Washington versus New Jersey, 3 and 6 together. I see Washington in 7 games. Pittsburgh versus Philly. Now this is quite the rivalry, and they matched up against each other very well. But if Crosby is healthy and he doesn't get any concussions, I see them winning in 7 games. Now, starting on the West, Vancouver versus San Jose. I don't see San Jose going far either, but just Vancouver's just so good. I wouldn't say they swept them, but I say in 5 games, 4-1. Now, 2 versus 7, Chicago versus Detroit. Detroit's aging, and they don't. Well, because of Lindstrom's retirement, I have to see Chicago taking this 6 games. Los Angeles versus Nashville. Los Angeles is just going to sweep them. Nashville can't compete with Quick. I don't think so. Now with 4-5, St. Louis Blues versus Phoenix Coyotes. I honestly see St. Louis taking it 4-2. Starting from the semifinals, I think round 2. Let's just say that. Let's see. Rangers versus Pittsburgh. I have to see New York taking this in 7 games. They're both very good teams, but because they added Rick Nash to their roster, they have high depth. But it's going to be a very close game. I see at least an overtime winning game 7 for the Rangers. Boston versus Washington. I see at least Boston taking it 7 games. Even though Washington did take them last year in 7 games, it was just a lucky overtime goal. I would say that Tim Thomas was interfered with, and that's how they won the series. But I have to see Boston taking this in Game 7. So, let's see. Starting in the Western Conference for the second round. Vancouver versus St. Louis. I see Vancouver taking this 4-2. Now, Chicago Blackhawks versus Los Angeles. They're gonna match up pretty well together, but I have to see Los Angeles taking this in 7 games. Now, for the East in the third round, I see Rangers and Boston Bruins. Rangers going to take this in another Game 7. It'll be a great series, but I have to say Rangers is a bit better than them because Tim Thomas is taking the year off, I'm pretty sure. Now, it depends, really. Now, Vancouver versus Los Angeles. Because Vancouver has higher depth, and even though they lost last year, I really think it's just a couple lucky goals. So I just think that Vancouver is going to take them in 7 games. It's going to be very close. Now for the Stanley Cup Finals, Vancouver and New York, they're both very great teams. But when they match up together, I have to say that New York will take Vancouver in 6 games. Sorry, Vancouver. You guys always make it to the round, to the finals, but you never seem to win it. But you'll get it eventually. Just not next year. I'm sorry. But that's what I have for my prediction.
Yes, you guys have some interesting playoff predictions.
Well, mine is all just rivalries. Josh is just stupid.
I swear, I looked up each and every single time.
7 games for Buffalo.
All four rounds?
Alright, I know it sounds outrageous, but I looked it up. I looked at all the stats and how they matched up against their opponents.
We have to admit, he put a lot of work into this.
Yes, he did.
I did.
He's just so blind to see that Buffalo takes it each series in 7 games.
Should have had New York win that series.
Yeah,
I didn't
come on.
And LA.
Buffalo
Yeah.
matches up. Alright, LA and Buffalo only played twice last year. You don't even know how well they're going to do
We don't
against
even
each other.
know.
They've barely played against each other in forever.
I only had a couple controversial picks. I had Detroit over LA. That was a little controversial.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Why? Detroit won 3 out of 4.
That's regular season though.
Yeah, it still means something.
Detroit's old now, though, and they lost Lindstrom.
Yeah, so you have to think that would put a big impact on them.
I'm sticking by my pick.
Fine,
Okay.
but we'll just see for next year.
So who'd you
But
guys
if
have?
the lockout is still then we'll just go for 2013, 2014.
You guys
nothing
both-
will change.
I'm so different from you guys. You guys both had the Rangers beating Vancouver, and I had Buffalo
And
beating
we all
LA.
have teams from the state of New York.
See, Vancouver is a very good team. I really wanted them to at least win a cup once, but I don't think next year is their chance.
No, I think if New York makes the finals, I think they can beat anybody else in the finals. They could beat Pittsburgh in 6. If Vancouver ended up meeting Pittsburgh in the finals, it would be I think Vancouver in 6 games.
Yeah, but I
So
see Rangers in 6 games. But
Yeah.
possibly if they have a back-to-back year for 2013, 2014, then I'll
Yeah.
see Vancouver taking it.
Yeah.
Back to back.
If I actually put the Rangers against the Canucks, I would see the Rangers winning 6 or 7 games because it's just Henrik Lundqvist can really stop that firepower.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cause they have Lundqvist, Rick Nash.
Lundqvist.
I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Lundqvist.
Gabowick, and who's the other people?
Richards and Nash.
I just said Nash.
Girardi, Stahl, McDonough.
Wait, Stahl. Oh wait, sorry, wrong Stahl.
Mark Stahl.
The other two play in Carolina.
Would you imagine Mark Stahl playing with Carolina? then
The Stalls.
I will put them into the playoffs. They're stalling.
The New Rangers are already in the playoffs.
No, I say if
Oh,
Mark Stahl goes to
Carolina,
Carolina,
okay.
then I would change my prediction.
Well, anyway, let's get on with the awards, the final spot of the show.
Yeah,
Go.
this is going to be. We never did this before.
Yes, we've never done awards. Actually, this is our first time doing this at all. This is our
Yeah.
first time doing this at all.
Well, no, with predictions of all this stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Season number 1.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just letting you know, we're going to do this for next season.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on the lockout. Whatever, let's get on with this. Awards are now.
Coming to you.
Now, lastly, for the NHL awards. Oh, these previews are almost done. I know your Teens Talk Hockey fans are so sad. Anyway, now we have for our first award, we have the Conn Smythe Trophy. I think it's going to go to Rick Nash. He's going to have that Game 7 winner against Pittsburgh, as well as going to score a bunch of goals in these playoffs. He's going to be a great clutch player. He just hasn't been able to show it yet because he got swept against Detroit in 2009. Anyway, moving on. Now we have the Hart Trophy. It's going to go to Captain Canada, Sidney Crosby. Anyway, Crosby's going to also take home the Ted Lindsay and Art Ross trophy. So he's going to get a trio. He's going to get a hat trick of trophies. Very good for him. So Hart Trophy, Ted Lindsay, and the Art Ross Trophy all go to Crosby. Now moving on to the Maurice Richard. We have the Steven Stamkos. No, not the Steven Stamkos. We have Steven Stamkos. Steven Stamkos is going to pull together another 60-goal season. He's fantastic for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And it doesn't hurt to have Martin St. Louis at your wing. Moving on, we have the Lady Byng Trophy. I think Louis Eriksson's going to win it. He's a 70-point player. He can score 30 goals, and he only takes like 6 penalty minutes a year. Moving on, now we have the Frank J. Selke Trophy, and that's for top defensive forward, and I think that's going to go to Ryan Kessler. He's going to come back after his shoulder surgery, his hurt shoulder, and he's going to play very well. He's going to be a force like he was in the 11 and 10 seasons. Now, moving on to the James Norris Trophy for Best Defenseman, we have Shea Weber. Now, Shea Weber is a fantastic defenseman. He's huge. He can shoot the puck really well. I mean, he's awesome. Now, moving on. Now we have the Vezina Trophy for Jonathan Quick. Now, I know Henrik Lundqvist, homeboys. I know you're gonna get mad at me, but Jonathan Quick's just too good a goalie. His technique is almost flawless, so goes to Jonathan Quick. Now for the Willie M. Jennings Trophy, hey, Lundqvist homeboys, you get this one back. It's gonna go to Lundqvist and Biron. Lundqvist and Biron are getting the Willie M. Jennings Trophy for best goals against average. Moving on to the Calder Trophy. I know it's going to surprise a couple people for me for not picking Schultz or Yakupov. I'm going to pick Sven Berchi, or Barcheesi, as the 2BC Productions people call him. Barcheesi! Now, Barcheesi's going to get some good player, or some good stats. He's probably going to score might even score 30 goals his rookie year. He's going to be very good for this team, and yeah. Now coming up, we have the Bill Masterton Trophy. Now, this is just kind of like the bull crap, but, whatever, I gotta give it to somebody. I'll just give it to Ryan Kessler, who's coming back after his shoulder. Now moving on to Jack Adams, I gotta give it to Daryl Sutter. He's done a lot. He's done great things with that LA team. He led him to a cup, and he's gonna do great again this year, leading to the conference, the second round. He's gonna get knocked out in the first round, because I have Detroit. I'm rooting my own picks. Anyway, now we'll go to top GM. I think this is almost unanimous. It's gotta go to Chuck Fletcher. The guy in Minnesota is awesome. He got Parise and Suter in one off season. Really good. Now for the final award, we have the Mark Messier Leadership Award, and that's got to go to Sidney Crosby. He's a fantastic leader. I think he won the Mark Messier Leadership Award in 2010. Great player. We'll see you later. Yeah. Now for the awards, we're moving on to Josh.
Now to start off the awards, I'm going to start with the Conn Smythe, which goes to the best playoff player. Now, I think that's going to go to Thomas Vanek from the Buffalo Sabres. He's going to score some great goals in those Game 7s, all 4 of them, and help him advance. Now, for the Hart Trophy, it's going to go to Evgeny Malkin, because he's just awesome. And then the Ted Lindsay and the Art Ross are also going to go to Malkin because he scores a lot and people like him. And the Maurice Richard's also going to him because he scores lots of goals. And I don't know why I picked him for 4 awards, but I think he's going to get them all, except only those 4. Now, for the Lady Bing, Pavel Datsyuk. He's a very gentlemanly player. He very much so deserves it. This one is actually a legitimate pick. I didn't just say, oh, it's Evgeny Malkin. This one's legitimate. Pavel Datsyuk, I think, will win the Lady Bing because he's a really nice player. He doesn't fight a lot, and he just doesn't get too many penalties. And the Frank J. I can't say it, is also going to Pavel Datsyuk because he's just awesome. And then James Norris for the best defenseman. That's going to go to Zdeno Chara because he's got the most powerful slap shot in the NHL. He's got really, really good scoring for a defenseman at least. And he's really good, and that's why I think he deserves a Norris. Now for the best, now for the top goalie, I think it's going to Henrik Lundqvist because he just leads the team so far. He's really good. He can shut out teams like nobody's business. He makes epic saves, and that's why I think he deserves that. Now the William M. Jennings Trophy, I think will go to Lundqvist and Biron since it goes to both goalies as long as both goalies have played 25 games. Now, they are really good, and that's why I think they are going to shut out a bunch of teams, and I think they'll win the William M. Jennings with the best GAA. Now, the Calder Trophy, I think is going to go to Neil Yakupov. He's a really good pick by Edmonton. He's really strong. He can score. He's very, very good at what he does, and that's why I think he's going to win the Calder. The Bill Masterson, I think, is going to go to Alex Semin. He's really good. He's going to be one of the team's best players anyway since he got traded. And now for the Jack Adams, which goes to the top coach. I think that's going to go to Ken Hitchcock. He's a really good goalie. He can lead the team, and he definitely helps the team. If they had any different coach, they probably wouldn't be as good as they are. Now for the top GM, I think it's going to be Chuck Fletcher because he was able to get Parise and Suter in just one free agency. It's hard enough to get one of those players, but he did it in one deal. It was crazy how good he is at negotiating with them. He got them what they wanted, and he got what he wanted out of it too. And I think it's going to really benefit the team in the future. Now, for the Mark Messier Leadership Award, I think it's going to go to Alexander Ovechkin. He's a really good leader on the Washington Capitals. He's really the only reason they do that well. He leads his team to the playoffs every single year pretty much, and he does everything super well, and he leads his team.
Alright, it's time for me for my awards. For the Conn Smythe, I think it's Henrik Lundqvist because, he's a very good goaltender and he can really carry that team, the New York Rangers. Without him, I don't think they can make it to the Stanley Cup without him. So, for the Hart Trophy, Sidney Crosby. Yes, Captain Canada here. Ted Lindsay, Steven Stamkos. Oh yeah, he's very good. I really think so. Art Ross, Sidney Crosby once again. Maurice Bouchard, Steven Stamkos. Do you see a pattern there? I just thought you did. The Lady Bing goes to Pavel Datsyuk. Low penalty minutes and doesn't get into much fights at all. Now the James Norris Trophy goes to... Wait, did I forget one? Oh yes, I did. The Frank J. Selke Award. It also goes to Pavel Datsyuk. That's, I believe, is the most defensive forward. He's an all-around player, and he's very good. The James Norris goes to Zdeno Chara. He has one of the hardest slap shots in the league. Very tough, very strong, and he gets a lot of points. The Venza goes to Henrik Lundqvist. Yes, he got 2 trophies. That's very good. Now, the William M. Jennings Award goes to Corey Schneider and Luongo. If Luongo also may get traded to possibly Florida, then it'll be the backup, I possibly believe. Now, the Calder goes to Justin Schultz. I would also put Yakupov, but I did not see Yakupov's performance because he did not play in the AHL. But what I've seen from Schultz, he gets at least 1 or 2 points each game, so he's pretty good. So if he goes to the NHL, I would possibly say he's the Rookie of the Year. Now, the Bill Masterton Award goes to Alish Hemsky. When he's a very good player. Well, not yet, but he's very dedicated to the game. The Jack Adams goes to John Tortorella. I just like his coaching. The New York Rangers are lucky to have him. Top GM goes to Chuck Fletcher. I just don't get what he did for Minnesota. It's just very good. A very good GM. Now the Mark Messier Leadership Award, I think Austin forgot to say, Captain Canada, Sidney Crosby. Yes, he got 3 rewards there, a hat trick. And yeah, those are my selections. I think I made a fair choice for all of them.
Now that we embark on this final scene of our previews.
This is the end of season 1, and it's sadly, I'm very sad to say goodbye.
Unless the NHL season starts this lockout. But
Yeah,
anyway.
this is the final season of our predictions, right?
Yes. But anyway.
Oh yeah, so the worst part's over for us because we don't have to do any more predictions,
Quite frankly, I'm a little sick of doing them.
and we have to do it again in July, which is like, yay.
At least we'll start earlier next year.
Oh yeah, because we're well aware about the show. Austin puts us to work, and he puts our friendship at second place.
It's a show.
It's not
Anyways,
showbiz.
what did you guys think of me putting Evgeny Malkin winning 4 trophies?
I don't think I'll win the Maurice Richard. I disagree.
If Crosby if Crosby comes back and if he's very healthy and he plays the full 82 games, I really think he'll be better.
I think Crosby is a better player than Malkin.
Crosby can possibly be the best hockey player in the world. Like, come on, he was 14 when he played midget AAA.
Crosby!
Well, it's Crosby.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Wayne Gretzky couldn't even
I
do that.
kind of just picked a bunch of European players.
So quick
that
recap.
was-
Quick recap. I had the Pittsburgh Penguins, my President's Trophy winners.
Yeah,
I had
Vancouver.
You both had Vancouver.
Because I say Vancouver will have a tough competition with New York. Who cares about Pittsburgh?
I had Vancouver and New York playing each other in the Stanley Cup Finals, with New York winning in 5 games.
I had New York in 6 games against Vancouver.
I had Buffalo against LA in 7 games.
You just had 7 games for Buffalo each series.
I didn't pay attention to the trend I was setting. I didn't realize every
Oh,
single
yeah.
time they won.
You
it was
didn't
game
know that
7.
Buffalo was in Game 7 for each series up to the Cup.
What? I didn't
How
realize
did you
that.
not notice?
I don't know.
Austin, how did you figure
I
that
just
out?
did the stats and looked at it.
Austin, how did you figure that out? Did you find something weird?
Oh, I noticed it earlier. I just had to tell him afterwards to make it look bad.
Did you just pop a pimple?
No. Anyway, so then, alright, so yeah, you had your weird old Buffalo final, and you had your New York Vancouver final.
I made a fair prediction.
Yeah.
I did too. I looked at the stats.
I put Buffalo at 8 getting knocked out in the first round.
Okay, moving on, we have our winners. I guess Hart Trophy and Conn Smythe. Let's quickly recap that.
I had Lundqvist at Conn Smythe.
Yeah, I think I had Crosby and Nash, so.
Yeah,
I ended up
Nash.
getting it.
I don't guess how you rely on Nash doing one specific thing to win that trophy.
Oh no, I said he would also score a lot of goals.
He said if he gets an overtime winner for Game 7, he'll.
Well,
win
not
the Conn
necessarily. I'm
Smythe.
saying
It's
he'll score a lot of big goals.
Don't
Okay.
put that in the bank.
But Rick Nash is a great player. You can't deny it.
Oh yeah,
He
of
is,
course.
but
And
Can't
he's
be
a-
like he's going to score
and
the
he's a
overtime winning
very-
goal in
I
Game
know.
7.
And he's a very loyal player. Like, think of it. 7 years with Columbus and only made the conference finals once.
You don't even know how he plays in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I guess. But what if he's one of those players that's like really good in the playoffs, like Danny Briere
I
or
think.
Jonathan Quick?
Claude Giroux.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, and let's finish off this episode.
We just have to say goodbye.
Nothing's next. I'm sorry.
Well, we might talk about the AHL a bit more. Like,
Unless the season
if
starts.
the lockout is not resolved, then we're gonna talk more on the AHL because some of
Don't
the
bank on it. I don't really want to do the AHL.
Well, hey, you have to talk about the Barons. Like, they're pretty
I
sick.
don't want to talk about the Barons.
Well,
Well, you gotta talk about something. You can't just be like, okay, we're doing the show.
Yeah, we're
I'll lock
not
out.
leaving
Let's
our
stop.
fans. Like, you can't just cut away the best part.
We have to keep-
Like, we
Videos.
didn't do all these predictions for nothing.
You can do specials.
No.
We'll continue to do other.
Well,
videos.
it's possibly, like, at least a 99% chance that we'll talk about the AHL.
There's no 99% chance. I don't really want to.
Anyways,
Two
we
against
might,
one.
we might not, but we will be releasing videos. Don't know what the content
Well,
will
we
be.
might release lame dames, so be prepared for,
Lame dames are lamer than dames.
Josh Mosh,
Okay, whatever.
is lame dame.
Well, I'm Austin.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Damien.
We're
Teens
Teens
Talk
Talk
Hockey. See you next season.